and welcome to the Lucas Show with me, Kate McIntyre.
And me, Danny Lucas.
Well, today we're welcoming onto the couch Andy Jackson. Hi, Andy. From the British Lung Foundation. I know you guys have worked together for quite some time, Danny.
Yes, so a few years ago, I really decided that I wanted to be laser focused on a charity that we could support that was relevant to our industry. And we work with dust, we work with paint, so it's very an occupational health industry that we work in. And the British Lung Foundation were doing some amazing things. And that really started the journey of our relationship, which we've never looked back on since, and we continue to this day.
Yeah, so Andy, when Danny got in touch then, what did you think? Did you think there was an immediate tie-in there?
As Danny alluded to, I mean, absolutely. I mean, construction as an industry is obviously an area that we really wanted to focus on. We've actually widened that focus since, and partly because of our relationship with Lucas, it's really opened our eyes actually to the field of construction. It was just a perfect fit, and once we started hearing sort of some of Danny's ideas and inspirations and innovations of what you're going to do going forward, it's really exciting stuff, and we really wanted to be part of that, but also spreading that message within the construction industry about the importance of lung health.
Yeah.
So for you, Andy, I mean, just fill me in really. Why is it so important then for charities to get some really good, strong tie-ins with businesses as soon as they can? Yeah,
well, in terms of from raising awareness from a lung health point of view, occupational health is an area that's of real importance to us. We know with construction, for example, that you're working around materials like where there's going to be lots of dust, for example, or you might be exposed to lots of chemicals, and obviously with the solvents and paints and things like that. It's an area where people are going to be much more exposed to things that can cause real damage to your lungs. If you think about that prolonged exposure that you say you might enter the trade at, say, you know, as Danny did, you know, when you started out, you entered the trade at 18 and you could be working in the trade for, you know, 30, 40, 50 years. It's that prolonged exposure that then often we've seen manifest. I mean, most people would probably know about mesothelioma and that link with asbestos. So it's been something that's been going on for a long time, and it was an area that it was so important to raise the awareness, specifically in construction, but more widely across businesses actually, about things you can do, signs to look out for and so on for lung disease.
One of the things that really surprised me, and it was a stat that I don't think many people know, but Andy will enlighten us on this, but the stats around how many people, or the percentage of people that have got a lung disease. Yeah,
that's right. I mean, 1 in 5 of us in the UK is affected by some kind of lung condition, which in itself is an incredibly startling stat. But then if you went directly to looking at it from an occupational health point of view, I think it's 12,000 deaths a year. A year. Now that's not exclusive to construction, of course. That's across industries.
They're big numbers,
but huge numbers, and 20,000 cases. You know, 700,000 days of work lost a year due to something related at work. A lung condition related to work. Yeah.
So obviously you're very happy with your tie-in here, Dan. Yeah. I mean, just want to ask you, just before we get on to more with Andy, that sort of wider question of companies, successful companies, wanting to get involved with charities, making donations, having pet charities. If there are people out there running a business thinking, actually, I'd like to get involved, you know, that this little chat's inspired me, whether with your charity or others, what would you say to them?
Well, I think that you should be relevant with what you're doing. I think that's really important. I think for any business, having a CSR policy is really important. I think that we can all become very diluted, and it's no good scratching at the surface. This is about being able to drive something together. And I think that a lot of businesses will be on the receiving end of being asked to do a lot of support, which unfortunately doesn't help anybody because it ends up so spread thin. Yeah. But what you need to do is be very laser focused in where you're going. So in Lucas, we've created a very clear CSR policy, and of course, British Lung Foundation sit at the centre of that. It works so perfectly with the whole drive that we've got towards improving health on sites and improving the environment with what we're doing. Andy mentioned some of the innovations. There's a long journey here that we can work on together. Yeah. And I think that companies should look at working strategically with charities that make a difference. And certainly in construction, with dust and all the materials that we work with. And I'm pleased to say, even though you touched on solvents, that you know, the whole drive towards VOC-free and water-based coatings means that we're starting to see that stuff disappear. Yeah.
So Andy, talking about then the tie-ins with a company, obviously you receive financial help is part of it.
Yes,
but
of course.
There are many other areas you can tap into: knowledge, support, skills.
Yeah, very much so. So this is the thing, and as Danny said about the whole idea of it being strategic, think that's very much how partnerships should and charity partners should and could and should really be like that. And it gets the most benefit from the partnership as a result. I mean, yes, of course, the financial contribution to us to support the research, the all the things that we do in terms of the helpline and all those kind of things, valuable, absolutely invaluable things. And, you know, we couldn't do what we do without Danny and other companies like that. But it is very much about tying into a thing that fits. It's about raising awareness about lung disease. We said that 1 in 5 people have it. So, and working in a thing and helping people to be aware of the signs and symptoms to look out for, because lots of these things don't manifest till you could be well into retirement before some of them on COPD, one of the most common forms, and something that's very prevalent that workers can get. That's something that might not come until they're 65, 70. So it's something to be aware of and things. You can build that. And then in terms of with Lucas, we started talking about the things, their fit out specialists. Funnily enough, we were discussing a partnership, weren't we, down in our, what was not a very nice looking office actually at the time, downstairs, one of our meeting rooms. And we said we were looking to put out to tender, and Danny said, well, look, this is what we do, this is how we work.
Well, that's a perfect example, isn't it, Danny, of you getting involved with other skills. So did you do a whole refurb of the HQ? Yeah,
so we had a fantastic experience working with the British Lung Foundation. The Lucas team last summer engaged with them. We worked as a team together, and we did a fantastic transformation of their London HQ that was, you know, meant so much to them. It meant that they could really focus putting their resources where they needed to be.
That's exactly it. And also, I can't tell you on a level from the staff. Now, when we walk in, we're really proud about going in the office, you know, and it's like, and it makes a difference. We talked about companies and the importance of the donation and getting strategic partnerships. Impressions matter sometimes, you know, and while we didn't, you know, whilst it's not the be all and end all, obviously the cause is the most important thing. It's nice to be able to welcome people into. Who doesn't like a nice office, right? No. And it's great.
Well, let's just see how nice it is then. Let's have a look at Lucas's handiwork. Take a look at this.
So Danny said, you know, what else can we do to help the British Lung Foundation?
I said, well, actually, we're
refurbing.
We sent him an email before you knew it. We had architects in. I mean, Danny doesn't look around. We had architects designers in. It was incredible.
It's clean, it's spacious, it's modern.
Well, it certainly looked very swanky. You guys were obviously pleased with it, and that must be very satisfying for you as well, Danny.
It was. It shows just how you can apply your resources in more ways than just money, and we used our skill sets there and the Lucas team's sort of attitude to deliver a great job to make a massive difference. And I think that with volunteers and people that are needing to be attracted into organisations like the British Lung Foundation, it makes a huge difference to come into a positive environment.
Do you think, Andy, have you seen the impact?
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, it's just so nice now. We have a little breakout area in the reception, which we never really had before. I mean, if you come in off the street and you know, you're waiting for a meeting, say, and stuff, it's just such a nicer place to kind of sit down. We've got, you know, now people can actually read our information booklets in a nice setting and environment, and it's not kind of like, I think before we kind of like, it's like, oh, kind of put your coat over there, and you know, it's just, it has made an enormous difference. Great impact.
It looks fantastic.
Yeah. Brightened everything up.
We're really delighted with the outcome and the feedback we've had.
So just talk me through, well, Danny and Andy, yourself as well, I'm sure you're across this, the main sort of dangers to workers in the construction industry, to their health, well-being, and specifically their lungs?
In particular to the trade that we're in, obviously, the finishing side of things and the fit-out side, it's very much dust, as Andy mentioned. So face fit testing is a big thing for us as a company, making sure that everybody's got a face fit test certificate. Obviously using materials that are not hazardous to health, so things that haven't got VOCs in them, chemicals, solvents, looking at alternatives, because that stuff is very damaging to you, certainly from a long-term exposure point of view. So, I mean, it's about dust, it's about chemicals, it's very much what construction faces as a big problem. So things like sweeping up, for instance, now aren't allowed on most sites. You won't see a broom anymore. It has to be.
It's the dust extraction.
It has to be dust extraction.
Yep.
You can't have a broom anymore because it's a big problem. It creates plumes of dust. So the awareness now is massive. And what British Lung Foundation are doing to support that message, and with the partners that they're working with, not just Lucas, but other partners that are working on construction-related areas that are to do with dust control and that, you know, as a team, we can collaborate and create an amazing future for this industry.
So, I mean, before Danny came on board, and I know you've mentioned Danny in a couple of other sort of construction-related industries, how connected into the construction industry were you at the British Lung Foundation?
Not on the same level at all, no, absolutely not. I mean, it wasn't that we weren't having conversations with construction and things like that, but it wasn't in such a... we didn't have that immediate tangible link in that we got through Danny that was then enabling us to sort of develop this workplace lung testing thing that we'd alluded to a couple of times already, which kind of brings it front and forward into the mindsets and, you know, actually physically to the people. And it makes a huge difference to be, you know, you watch I know they've got fantastic, you know, videos, training, induction, but nothing beats actually physically, you know, actually speaking to people, you know, professionals, getting your lungs physically tested and then being given that sort of reminder, gosh, this is why it's important. If I don't do this, then I could be exposed to X, Y, or Z, you know. It makes a massive difference.
Oh, it's very impactful and hugely powerful. The work we've already done together has been amazing on that side.
So taking a step back then, you're obviously at a really good stage at the moment, but, you know, turning back the clock years ago, how bad was the situation on site then? Because obviously people were oblivious to it, weren't they?
Oh, completely. COSH assessments only came in the late 80s. I mean, before that, I remember working with solvents without masks. I hate to say, but you know, I started at 15. I was breathing in stuff that today would be completely illegal. Of
course, asbestos was still in use, you know, and if you go further back, of course, that's now been outlawed, so that's, you know, that's a positive step forwards. But yeah, people weren't aware of the exposure and the risks and everything attached. There have been big strides, but of course these risks still exist, and that's why we have to keep reinforcing the good messages that are going out there at the moment of wear your masks, don't sweep up, do your dust extraction, because it's just keep reinforcing that message, and that's what these lung testing events are enabling us to do on another level, and equally working alongside Danny and companies and making sure that the health and safety executive are fantastic. They've got great guidelines and they're there for a reason, trying to make sure that there's the human side to it, so people realise it's not just you being told off, there's a real serious important underlying reason why this is important.
Exactly, it's the way we work, it's not an add-on. We spoke about health and safety in previous shows. It used to be an add-on, today it's the way we work. Well-being is part of that, and this is all about well-being, and this is about the future industry here. We're trying to create an industry that attracts new people in, because we've got the skill shortage. What better way than showing people that you do get your lungs tested, you do get referred to a doctor if you need to, you do have early signs of COPD identified, you're not exposed to chemicals and dust. This is a great industry to work in, and with British Lung Foundation, we're proving that through our partnership.
Yep.
Okay, well, let's have a little closer look at the lung testing that goes on site. So they come you go to the Lucas sites, do the tests, everyone knows what's happening, and they've sort of got that in the diary now.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, what we're doing, which I think is brilliant, is we're able to do over 100 people in a day, which means that on a project where we've got maybe 30 Lucas operatives, we're extending that to 70 other people on that project free of charge through our partnership with British Lung Foundation. We've now done that on 2 projects together, Greenwich Peninsula with Mace, and most recently Goodman's Fields with Berkeley Homes. And it's groundbreaking. I mean, this is like a roadshow now of going around projects, doing occupational lung testing, and referring people. I hate to say there has been an odd few referrals, but you know, it's good for the guys to actually physically speak to someone. Construction workers in particular don't make time normally to go and get checked out. We're bringing that to them, which is a new way, and it's actually giving them some assurance.
Absolutely, right. And early I was just going to say, just to add to that there have been those referrals, not that many, but there've been referrals. But the fact that they've been referred and potentially referred early is so important. It's early diagnosis is a really big and important thing. So the earlier you get something diagnosed, it's not going to mean the lung disease will go away. It just means that you can treat it and have a healthier and happier life for longer, and that's so important.
Life changing.
Of course it does. Well, let's have a look at the tests in action.
It measures how fast the air comes out of your lungs in a second. The group that we've had in today, they're clearly strong, fit, they do a lot of active work, and for that actually I think their results are really good. If they wanted to get a better result, my absolute takeaway message from all of this would be try not to smoke.
Now, I know, Andy, early diagnosis, as we said, is really important. So what kind of figures have you guys got around tests that you've done over the years?
Yeah, so the test, I think it's important first to make clear that the test itself, so it's carried out by a respiratory specialist, nurse specialist. It's an indicative test rather than a diagnostic test. So if you were to score a lower than predicted reading, it doesn't necessarily mean you have a lung condition, but it means you need to get referred on to your GP for further testing to check that you don't. But typically off that we've got, so if you say that Danny said you can do up to about 100, we often do sort of around the 80 to 85 mark. Of that you'd be looking maybe 1 in 8, so perhaps up to as high as 10 might get referred on across the thing. I have to say Lucas's ones are slightly lower than that, but when you put it across the board, it tends to be, so about 1 in 10 would get a referral letter to then go on to take to their GP to then go get further testing. So whether that then ends up in them having a COPD or a lung condition it's by the way, we're not 100% sure, but they have that proactive opportunity to go and take that step if they want to.
And it gives them that chance, to get help early if there is a problem, doesn't it?
That's
so how
right.
often are the tests, Danny?
So this is like a roadshow that we're doing. As I say, we've done the 2 projects so far. The next one is 22 Bishopsgate with multiplex, which we're really looking forward to. It's going to make a big impact on that project. They're at fit out stage, so again, this is very relevant. Pretty much quarterly. This is like a quarterly roadshow that we're doing. It's a big event that we lay on. Fully funded by Lucas, working with the British Lung Foundation. And as I say, we're offering it to all of the clients that we work with and all of the operatives that are on that project. So I think the record was about 103 or maybe 105.
It was a busy day for the nurses.
Quite amazing. And it's a quality thing, a really good quality thing that we're doing.
Yeah.
And would you say, Andy, that everyone on site is actually getting on board with this and they understand the importance of these tests?
Do you know what? I think so, yeah. The more of these we've done, the more we've got talking to them anecdotally, and they really benefit from, as I said before, they really value actually being able to talk to someone who isn't actually necessarily directly, it's not someone who's their direct line manager or something like that where they're kind of wagging a finger. It's actually coming to talk to someone, and they actually open up a little bit more as a result because it's somebody different. And so they'll have a good old, sometimes we have to try and get them away from the nurse specialist so we can go and get the next person through, and that's really good, and they take away the literature. We also normally take someone from the local smoking cessation service is often there as well, because obviously about 1 in 2 or just over actually are also smokers, which obviously is a contributory factor to lung disease as well. So there's getting those 2 touch points actually, which is really valuable. Yeah, and the feedback we've been getting has been really broadly very, very positive, and they kind of want to know and do more. And equally, if they've got good lungs, they get a good lung score, they want to know how to keep it, and that's great. That's exactly what we're looking for.
Perfect.
As you've seen from the film as well, Kate, it's a very bright, vibrant, positive environment that we're creating for the space in which we're using and the branding that we're using. So it's got that feel of comfort factor, if you like, and confidence for the guys, which is really important.
And I know, Danny, at Lucas, health and safety has always been like right at the top of the list, hasn't it? I mean, safety as standard is one of your taglines.
Yes.
And these masks, talking about that, are a very big part of what goes on site now. Yeah,
I mean, look, I can't sit here with every mask we need because, of course, it would be a big list. But what is really important, and I think a lot of people don't realise this in construction, it doesn't matter whether you're a guy with a van with a couple of guys working with you, or you're a large company, but the law is the law, and a lot of people don't realise that face fit testing to ensure that the masks you give to your operatives are actually fit for purpose is so important. It's something that you can actually be fined for. It's a big offence.
Wow, okay.
And
so
I didn't,
it's quite serious.
Even I became educated that is the case. Like, hard hats are the norm now, and steel toe cap footwear, these are the norm. And you can't just choose a mask and say wear that. It's got to be the right mask. And these are just examples, I mean, if I take the light end, this would be for dust exposure, and if I go to the extreme end of working with paints with fumes, it would be this type of mask, and they have overspray guards on them, and again, they have to be face fit tested. They have to fit the operative, and unfortunately that means shaving as well, so no beards. There are ways around that with full air-fed masks, if people don't want to shave, of course. But it's really important, and it's more than just giving someone a mask.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you've highlighted the importance on site there, but if you sort of dial it back to me at home doing a bit of DIY, deciding to paint the living room, should I be wearing a mask?
Well, if you read the tin and you look at the manufacturer's instructions, it will always say that you should take precautions on health and safety. And HSE, which Andy mentioned, I mean, very active on this whole thing to do with dust.
Yeah.
They had a big campaign last year on it. It's there, it's free. You can go on hse.gov.uk and it's there. You can download all the guidelines. You can have a 10-step guide or whatever for the work you're doing at home. It's for everybody.
Yeah, but it's worth being safe, isn't it? I mean, why not?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is your life at the end of the day, and it could transform the way that you live in the future, or not.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, you forget then there's also the challenge from you get from working outside as well. So there's also the added thing of the air quality outside your home. You're working in an environment where there's that kind of air pollution as well to factor in. So the more things that you can do proactively to safeguard your lungs, the better, given that we're living in such an environment anyway.
Yeah.
So back briefly then to your testing roadshows that are once a quarter. What happens if people want to get tested in between? They're just feeling actually, feel a little bit congested, maybe I need to look into this.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Obviously, the BLF website is a really great starting point, but we also developed an online test which people can do. So it's not quite the same as being there and physically getting it tested or going to your GP, but again, it takes you through. It takes a couple of minutes to do. It's been really positive so far. I think about 500,000 have taken the test, 540,000 I think, have taken the test so far, and that's been really positively taken and received. And again, it's not a diagnostic test, but it's just giving you an indicator. If perhaps you're scoring slightly lower than you should do on there, or just say, well, perhaps you should go to the GP and check it out. And there's no harm in doing that. I think a lot of people feel like in some way they're wasting the GP's time, but actually, it's better being safe than sorry. And also, it's not okay actually to be breathless going up a flight of stairs. You think sometimes, especially the older generation, think, oh, I'm 65, I'm a bit unfit or whatever. Oh, I'm going to feel breathless going up a couple of flights. Actually, that's not necessarily the case. No. There could be something underlying that. So if you do feel breathless, you can take the test for sure, but go to your GP. And importantly, if you have worked in something like construction, then definitely mention the environments in which you've been working. It will help them get the right diagnosis for you.
I mean, just touching on that, do you think now there will be people, of the older generation that were on the construction site sort of 60 years ago when, you didn't have all these rules and regulations, and actually the repercussions of all the dangers on site are actually being seen now?
Yes, no, that's a really, really great point, and that's something that we should be stressed, not to overworry you, oh my goodness, I worked in construction, I'm going to get a lung condition, don't want to scaremonger, but it is important, yes, because these things, a lot of these diseases, we mentioned COPD, that would be a prime example of one, for example, but they are things that manifest later in life. So a part of this raising awareness with Danny through the lung testing events is also making them aware of the signs and the symptoms to look out for potentially in the future. That is actually a really very important point to take home. Yeah. And similarly, while we feel now we're in the clear of asbestos and everything, actually there's people who've worked with asbestos and it might still be manifesting itself in mesothelioma. So it is looking out for those signs of breathlessness and taking the tests and going to the GP. It's okay to ask.
Of course it is. So
Yeah.
Danny, let me just ask you now specifically about paint, because obviously the makeup of paint has changed over the years. Some of the nasty smells and nasty chemicals have gone, and we're moving to a lot more water-based paints.
Yeah, definitely. And I think where Andy talked about tackling the problem inside to help yourself, because outside we've got the problem. Of course, you know, we've got things like PM 2.5 and we've got NOx, and there's standards that aren't quite where they should be at the moment. It's all about sort of trying to get our Clean Air Acts to come in line with what they call the World Health Organisation,
they've got guidelines,
the WHO guidelines.
Yeah.
But of course, that's another area that we're tackling, and it's an area that actually brought us together with the British Lung Foundation originally on a pioneering project that we're working on that will, you know, absolutely clean the air around you and improve air quality and reduce NOx in the air.
So is this the future, the top secret future of paint?
It's the future, and it's definitely something that I can't go into great detail on, but it's a very exciting project that we're working on, and I think that you are set to see something that will be groundbreaking in the future very soon. I'm proud of that. I think that that is the future of coatings. It's all about well-being.
Yeah.
We talked in the previous show about drone painting to reduce working at height risks. That will go hand in glove with the sort of coatings that we're talking about here. So it will be well-being, health and safety, clean air, and hopefully we won't just have the dust inside, it will be a healthier environment outside as well.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Well, thank you ever so much, Andy.
No,
for
thank you for
a
having
chat.
me.
And I think as well, people at home sort of watching and listening to that, you know, it'll give them food for thought, really, won't it?
Oh, I think there's a lot to be learnt from what we've discussed today, and I think what the British Lung Foundation doing is still amazing. It still blows me away to this day. And I would urge everybody to get on their website, have a look, and of course donate. It's all about supporting what they're doing. It's really important.
It is, absolutely. Thank you very much, Andy.
No, thank you very much.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you. So that brings us to the end of another show. Thank you for watching. Again, as always, between now and the next one, you know what to do. But in case they've forgotten.
Yeah, well, it's hit that subscribe button for sure. And we want your feedback. I think, you know, the feedback we're getting is brilliant. The comments that we're getting from the audience are really engaging. And I would urge everybody to please engage with us. We want to mention you on the show and spread your message as well to our audience. So thank you for watching.
Yeah, thank you. See you next time.
Thanks. Bye.